The New Jersey Statehouse Watch is on. From Trenton, we explain what's happening inside the Statehouse, speaking directly with legislators, policymakers, and budget experts to bring you the facts behind the decisions.
There's no doubt that energy bills are about to skyrocket this summer.
$300 million to Newark billionaires? That ain't cutting it for rural New Jersey. Enough of it.
With your hosts, Jack Brangan and Constance Ditzel. So stick around. Here's Jack and Connie.
Stop calling me, you
Listen to me. We traced the call. It's coming from inside the house. Do you hear me? It's coming from inside the house.
Lo and behold, it's the state of New Jersey that's cutting Medicaid. $266 million from this budget. It reminds me of the line in those horror movies. The call is coming from inside the house. That's who is cutting Medicaid. It's the state of New Jersey that's cutting.
You need to get out of there right now.
Well, good evening. We hope you enjoyed that clip. We enjoyed it. Yes. And that featured our Assemblyman, Mike Inganamort, who's our guest tonight. And we're going to be talking about a number of topics. That one refers to topic of Medicaid in New Jersey. We'll get to it later.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm Jack Brangan. This is Constance Ditzel.
Right.
And Constance, you're about ready to take off for Europe. So,
I am. I'm going to be hiking in the mountains between Austria and Germany.
Right.
This time next week. I'm
encouraging Constance you can rent a car, to get to the same place. That would be my route.
Not straight up the hill.
So lo and behold, it is the state of New Jersey behind most ominous bills that have gone through the legislature. And, this business with Medicaid was certainly one of them. Mm-hmm. We'll have Mike talk about it a little bit. Some of the other topics?
Oh, we're going to talk about a big deal that's in the news right now. This is voter files, day of reckoning. We hope there's going to be a day of reckoning on this. We're going to talk about the budget as pertains to Medicaid. If you're not on Medicaid, you still want to hear what's going on because it's affecting your tax dollars. The Climate Superfund, just a little peek in on that. And the World Cup kind of fiasco or fundraiser. We're trying to figure that out still.
Right. So if people are not watching what's going on in Trenton, I think if you live in New Jersey, you better pay attention because the Democrats rule the day there. They have a supermajority in the Assembly, majority in the Senate, and of course they have a Democrat governor. And there are some very serious bills that are being proposed and passed that are going to affect your lives, your health, and your children. But the thing about Mike Inganamort, that he is one of several folks in the Assembly that are really fighting for all of the families in New Jersey. I mean all, whether you're a Republican or Democrat or independent. These are bills to make life cheaper for you, lower the taxes, ensure your health, things of that nature. And before we jump into this, in addition to Mike, I want to run down a couple of the other folks that are in the Assembly that are in the trenches day in and day out. And in case you're not aware, there are 40 legislative districts. There are 21 counties. And of course, you don't have Assembly people per county. They complicate things. Mm-hmm. Instead of 21 counties, they have 40 legislative districts. And in the Assembly, there's 2 people in each district. So there's a total of 80 Assembly people. But on the Republican side, in addition to Mike, you have Brian Rumpf, who is from Ocean County. And I think he is the Assembly representative for the budget. Greg Meyer from Ocean County. And these are people that are standing up every day. Greg McGuckin, Paul Canitra, who we've had on the show before.
Several times.
Let's see, Vicki Flynn, who we've had on the show. And sorry, my page hit the microphone again here, but Jerry Scharfenberger, John DeMayo, who is the lead Republican Assembly, Eric Peterson, Dawn Fantasia. These are folks, names you should know about. And if you have something going on in your particular county, you should be calling your assembly person that represents you. Mike Inganamort, who we're going to meet in a few minutes, Ora Dunn, Brian Bergen, who's been on the show,
Right.
Jay Weber, which we'd like to get on the show, Robert Oth, John Arizidi, Al Barlis. I think Al is on also the committee that draws up the legislative districts as well. So there's actually, I think, 20 people that does this gerrymandering business. And I think Al is on that.
These people are fighting for us every day. I don't know
Yeah.
if people don't realize that. They're in the minority. So that's why you don't often hear what comes through, because it doesn't come through, but they're taking their time on the floor and they're making their points adamantly. And the best you can do is contact your assembly people every time. Let them know, contact your Democrat assembly people in your districts. That's where a lot of them are, and let them know your wishes.
Yeah. So are we ready for Mike?
I think so.
We'll bring him out of the green room into the day of light. There he is. So, hi, Mike.
Hey, Jack. Hey, Constance. Thanks for having me on.
Sure.
So, Mike, why don't you give us a little background before we get into the nitty gritty here with Trenton? Maybe give us a little bit of background of how you ended up in the assembly. Let's see if we can get you back on. There you are. Okay.
Well, absolutely. I would be glad to do that. I can't believe I'm serving in my second term in the assembly already. Time is flying by. But that is, in fact, what I'm doing. And I'm in my second term now, serving on the Budget Committee, on the Transportation Committee, and on the Environment Committee. I like being on those three in particular because there's a lot of overlap, a lot of ways I can try to advocate on behalf of my district and the rest of the state of New Jersey. But before I came into the Assembly, I was the mayor of Chester Township, a great little town in western Morris County. Where my wife and I are proud to live and raise three little girls. We love this community. I was proud to serve on the local governing body for 6 years, during which time I developed a sense and ultimately a philosophy that the state of New Jersey has a very punishing attitude towards small towns and the property taxpayers who foot the bill. And that was really my impetus to run for the state assembly, to fight on behalf of these small towns that are getting a raw deal from state government.
Quick question. Do you get assigned to a committee, or can you ask to be on a committee, or is it just luck of the draw? How does that happen?
How about all three, Constance? You express your interests. When I first came into the assembly, I knew I wanted to be on the Transportation Committee. The Environment Committee came along with that. In a way, the Budget Committee is new for me. This is my first time serving on the Budget Committee, and I'm really glad I did. Although I'm unhappy with the final result, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about New Jersey's $60.7 billion budget, I did at least appreciate the opportunity to be part of a 4-month intensive, a 4-month process where we went line by line through the budget, asked tough questions of individual cabinet secretaries and commissioners. So it's been a busy year so far, and look forward to getting back to it in the fall.
Okay, well,
so, I mean, along those lines, who makes the final decision as to whether you get on a committee and which committee, just in terms of the things they work in Trenton?
Sure. Well, first, part of this is based on the results of an election, right? Obviously, the Democrats have been in the majority for 25 years now, regrettably. Republicans have been in the minority on the assembly side for that entirety. And so the ratio is such that Democrats hold the majority on these committees. Unfortunately, in 2025, Republicans lost ground. We lost assembly seats, and our ratio was impacted. So the Budget Committee, for example, has 11 Democrats and four Republicans. So the ratio is set first. The membership comes after that. It's a decision that first comes out of each party's respective caucus, ultimately approved by the speaker. But it's both an art and a science, and I'm glad to be on the three committees that I'm serving on now.
So the speaker has the final say.
The speaker has the final say.
Okay, all right.
well, we're going to bring up a clip. We ready for that clip? We're going to bring up a clip of something that is right in the news right now. Can we bring that up, Mr. Producer?
In June of 2023, nearly 3 years before I became governor, a serious software error in New Jersey's motor vehicle system led to the improper voter registration of what we believe to be roughly 6,600 people in our state. In the case of this error, some individuals indicated that they weren't citizens and weren't eligible to vote. but the software registered them anyway. The error in the software was corrected a year later in June of 2024. That is more than 2 years ago. I learned of this last Wednesday, and I immediately ordered my chief counsel to launch a comprehensive investigation. Currently, the Division of Elections is working to ensure anyone who is illegally registered is removed from the voter rolls. Initial analysis shows that fewer than 400 newly registered individuals voted in an election due to this software error.
World. What was your initial reaction? Assembly's not in session right now, but what was your reaction to all this?
Well, I was frankly stunned. I was stunned, not by the disclosure that there are tremendous and severe flaws in our voter registration system at the MVC, but stunned that the governor was actually talking about it in an open and public way, that we're finally going to have this conversation about election integrity and the proper way to register voters. But the other thing I took away from this, Constance, is the timing, the sequence of events, which I think is important to understand, and I'm glad you included that in the clip you just played. The governor indicated in her remarks that she learned about this flaw in the system, we'll use her words for now, that 6,600 ineligible voters were indeed registered and 400 of them voted in specific elections. She learned about that on Wednesday, July 15th. What happened on Friday, July 17th? The administration received a letter from the Secretary of Homeland Security, Markwayne Mullen, indicating that as many as 35,000 ineligible voters may in fact be on our rolls. It wasn't until the beginning of the following week that the governor had this press conference disclosing this information. So I think that timing is quite interesting, and I'm certainly glad that this all came out to light because it's starting a conversation that is overdue, that is very serious, that we need to resolve going forward. And so now, my energy and that of my colleague and Senate Republican caucus is to investigate this in a bipartisan way and to resolve and reform this in a bipartisan way. I've said this to a few folks now. Election law affects both parties. It affects all parties and all voters equally. Therefore, both parties should have a seat at the table as we're figuring out what went wrong and how to fix it.
Yeah, this is all in the backdrop of, if you listen to Paul Kenitra or read his report, this is in the backdrop of 1 million illegal aliens that have poured into the state of New Jersey, according to Paul's report. I think he said 900,000, somewhere like that. Mm-hmm. So this is the backdrop. You have to wonder why all these individuals were brought in from all over the world, because in just about all the states, including New Jersey, lo and behold, they're showing up on the voter rolls and they're voting. So I'm very skeptical about whether the Democrats are sincerely interested in resolving this, because they are the ones that are going to benefit by having these folks on the voter rolls. And I just have the skepticism. They have all of the tools and the mechanisms right now at their disposal to run the voter database against federal databases that will give us a baseline of how many illegals, but they refuse to do that. They're one of the few states that won't do that. And so I think this is deliberate. That's my sense. Mikey Sherrill seemed to spend most of her time in a CYA mode, trying to explain that this was before me. It wasn't me. I had nothing to do. I had no idea. But this has been going on for decades, or for at least since the beginning of the Biden administration. And I think we're going to have to, really put some pressure on the Democrats to get them to yield. They will fight this all the way. And some of these bills that they're proposing do nothing but make the whole registration process less secure. So
yeah, you're right about that, Jack. The bills they're proposing certainly wouldn't solve this problem, because the core of it in this specific case is mixing voter registration with acquiring a driver's license. Those are two very different things. The right to vote is enshrined in our Constitution. There is no right to a driver's license in our Constitution. And mind you, those two privileges occur at different ages, right? You can license before you can vote in certain cases. They have different criteria associated with them. You have to pass a driver's test, et cetera, et cetera. I'm pointing out the obvious to establish the point that voting and driving have nothing to do with one another. And the second we combine the two, mixed a constitutional right with a privilege and put them on the same application form, we were bound to see mistake, fraud, illegitimate individuals put on the rolls. So Republicans have been saying was the inevitable result. This was bound to happen. And we've been saying for some time that we knew, in fact, that ineligible people were on the voter rolls. My colleagues Vicki Flynn and Jerry Scharfenberger from New Jersey's 13th district shared very specific named examples of this that fell on deaf ears. So I think that is why Republicans are making the case. And you said at the top, we are in a small minority in the legislature, so we're going to have to be doubly loud and forceful about this, communicating on platforms such as yours and trying to inspire the grassroots to finally engage on this issue. We're calling for four very obvious things. One, suspend automatic voter registration at the MVC for the reasons I just described. Voting and driving have nothing to do with each other. They shouldn't be on the same application form. Number two, full independent, top to bottom audit of the voter rolls. Make it public. If there's nothing to hide, put it all out there. Number voter ID, I suspect Democrats are going to fight tooth and nail against that, yet 80% approximately of Americans support it. And finally, I come back to number four, which is what I've been talking about the whole time, which is establishing a bipartisan legislative committee with subpoena power, by the way, to investigate all of this, hold open public hearings, have people like Latricia Littles-Floyd, who was the MVC administrator, who oversaw this breakdown. She needs to appear under oath before a bipartisan committee to explain what happened, when she knew it, and what she did about it.
But what do you make of the software firm when she said it was a software glitch? What do you make of that? What do you make of that argument? Obviously, when they stood up for themselves, they knew they'd be risking having the business going forward, and they weren't too worried about that. Anyway, what do you make of her claim there?
Well, this is precisely why this issue needs to be resolved in a bipartisan hearing under oath, because what we have now is a he said, she said situation between the Sherrill administration and this software company. But let me say this. This software company, they don't do election software. They don't do voter registration. This is a technology platform that is specifically used for driver's licenses. It's only because New Jersey ties voting and driving together, like some other number of states, that this platform, it was like a retrofit to handle voter registration information. That's not its intended use. That's not what it was designed to do. So I just repeat, we're in this position because New Jersey is, I think it's one of 19 states or so that erroneously, in my view, mixes voting, which is a constitutional right, with driving, which is certainly not in the Constitution, two things that happen at different stages of life. And by mixing them all together, that's how New Jersey got on this path where mistakes like this were far more likely to occur.
So this was a French company, is a French vendor, is that correct? It's not an American
that's
company.
What I've heard.
Yeah. I mean, normally in those
not to my knowledge.
Yeah, normally when you have that situation where you have a vendor and an IT shop, just because your vendor, you always check what they give you. If there's a change in their system, you don't just automatically put it out there into production. It's the state of New Jersey, the IT shop, that is ultimately responsible for the quality of that data. So they should have a quality assurance team that should have caught this years ago. This is a big miss.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this tells me either there is no quality assurance team, or they're overworked. On the system, there's probably none. And it also would have been caught with an audit. See, an audit would have, flagged this immediately. So this tells me this has not been audited. So there's, from a best practices standpoint in their IT shop, I think they probably would be failing an audit. So sometimes when you fail, most of the time they give you an opportunity to correct things. But if it's serious enough, they take the system offline for 30 days till it's fixed. So I think there's some big issues here. It's probably not even if it was, it's still ultimately the responsibility of the state of New Jersey. Mm-hmm. You can't
Absolutely.
throw it over the.
That's right. It's the old line, the buck stops here. The buck stops with the governor and the governor's administration. Now, listen, I'll acknowledge that this happened under the Murphy administration, and clearly the MVC and its leadership at the time either allowed this to happen, was totally negligent to what was happening. I'm not sure which is worse necessarily. Governor Murphy claims he didn't know anything about it. Well, now it is Governor Sherrill's problem to solve. And I like some of the things you just said now, Jack. There's got to be an audit of the system. Assembly Republicans are calling for a full and independent audit of the voter rolls. We need to put in systems in place to ensure this never happens again, regardless of what software you're using. You cannot blame this on the software. It is the state of New Jersey and the Division of Elections and the State Department within the state of New Jersey that is ultimately in the position to verify eligibility for voter registration, and they didn't do the job.
And because of concerns, apparently Assemblyman Flynn and Schaffenberger, at least for two, already in 2022 wanted to have an audit of voter rolls. Now that was in 2022, but Mikey Sherrill is responsible for 2026. But let's look at some of these bills. This was passed in January, A1636, for automatic opt-in. Was this even discussed? It seems like they're obsessed with voter bills. So that automatic opt-in, for anybody listening, that means that when you're getting your driver's license, it used to be that you could opt in to register. Now you're automatically opted in. You have to go out of your way to opt out. Well, a lot of people may not even catch that. So right now, and that's January 2026, signed by Governor Sherrill. So she's hook, line, and sinker on board with this string of voter bills.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Constance. I totally disagree with the concept of automatic opt-in. We got to be very careful about making anything automatic when it comes to constitutional rights and determining your eligibility therefore. There needs to be a human element in all of this. That's clearly what was missing here. If we take the software company at its word that it was simply processing data, sharing it with the divisions of the Department of State, then the breakdown occurred in the systems within the Division of Election. This wasn't a computer glitch or a technical error. The human element was missing, and that's clearly what needs to be a part of any of this.
Yeah. There were a few other ones there, too, right?
Well, you were going to bring up, I think, there's several others. What about the John Lewis bill? That was passed in April, right?
Yes, it was. In fact, it just came out of the last voting session on June 30th, and Governor Sherrill has since signed that bill into law. That bill goes back a ways. It was heard in front of the Assembly Oversight Committee about a year ago. I think it was June of 2025 when it was heard for the first time. I was on the Oversight Committee that year, and I might have been the first legislator to hear it in committee, certainly the first to vote against it and speak against it. And here's why, if I could just take some time on this bill, because it's a really important one. It has nothing to do with it. Yeah,
there's
go ahead,
a lot
Jack.
of confusion with the bill. If you can explain what it is, I think people don't really understand it.
Absolutely. Well, first, let me say something about its namesake. John R. Lewis led an extraordinary life. He was an integral figure in American civil rights. Unfortunately, I think that the substance of the bill is not a fair and accurate reflection of some of the extraordinary things that John R. Lewis did in his life. So I always take care to separate the two. I think the fatal flaw here is that the bill, which is now law, is based on a couple false notions. The first false notion is that it's hard to register to vote in New Jersey. That is clearly not the case, as we just described, right? In fact, the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction, where the state is literally registering people who shouldn't be registered and aren't even citizens of the country. So I reject the hard to register to vote in New Jersey. The second false notion is that there is widespread voter intimidation in New Jersey. We heard this in committee. I reject the argument. There are no federal cases to back that up. And in fact, there is not widespread voter intimidation. There are ample opportunities to register, ample opportunities to vote. There is early voting. There is mail-in voting. There is election day voting. County boards of election bend over backwards to afford voters the opportunity to vote in our elections. I'm most concerned on that point, by the way, that the bill, what it does substantively, is it cuts the leg of the county boards of elections, which by statute, these are 50-50 bipartisan entities, half Republican, half Democrat, volunteer positions who oversee a supervisor of elections. And this law will specifically make it harder for them to administer elections. How? Here's how. Previously, and until very recently, the Attorney General's office was an advocate, a partner to county boards of elections. When they'd have a voter come into the polling place and say, I think I'm registered here, but I'm not sure. Could you double check? The county board of elections would, as I said, do their very best to enfranchise, not disenfranchise, but enfranchise that voter and give him or her the opportunity to vote. And part and parcel was the ability to call up the Attorney General's office and say, help us out. We want to confirm this individual, whether he or she is able to vote, because we want to give that individual the opportunity to do so. No longer can the Attorney General's office help county boards of elections do that. In fact, the Attorney General's office is now an adversary to them, and specifically monitoring aspects of discrimination, looking for circumstances, instances of discrimination at the polls. The complicated thing here is that county boards of elections are going to have a real hard time arguing one way or another, defending themselves or not, considering that the state's voter registration system specifically does not track race. It does not track ethnicity. It does not track language. It does not track sexual orientation. These are not things that are captured, nor should they be captured, as far as I'm concerned, in a voter file. Right. And yet that is what county boards of elections could be legally responsible for. So this is going to be just a legal bonanza. I think you can expect to see a lot of lawsuits. We could have a situation where we have judicial activism on steroids, giving judges the ability to overturn elections, change district boundaries, change the terms of office of public office holders, even impose ranked choice voting. So this is a real buffet of options for judges. It really inhibits the ability of county boards of elections, statutorily bipartisan entities, to get the job done, and it puts everyone at the mercy of the Attorney General's office. This is not going to end well.
And another $2.5 million appropriated for a new department. I mean, we have a division of elections. Another $2.5 million appropriated. More money, more bureaucracy.
That's exactly right. That's right. It never ends with spending. There's never a problem in New Jersey that the Democratic majority can't find a reason to spend on.
All right. So the person that runs this division is appointed by the governor?
That is correct.
Right. So much of the power now of elections in New Jersey will be controlled by this person and the governor.
That's right.
And I think
this is a recurring theme here, Jack. It's consolidation of power, consolidation of decision making, taking it away from the county level, bringing it all up to the Attorney General, the individual appointed to run this office within elections, and the governor herself or himself in the future.
Yeah. This is a dangerous
one. So there's a couple other down the pike. You have They expanded early voting from, I think, 3 days to 10 days in A 4960. Not the most horrible thing in the world, but again, why are we starting voting even sooner? And then they have this bill that they're experimenting with a pilot program on mobile phones, voting by mobile phones, right? That's not passed, but it's under consideration.
Yeah. Apparently so, Constance. Listen, these are elections to elect people to govern, right? This is about the consent of the governed here. This isn't American Idol. This isn't a hit TV reality show where you can vote on your phones or your computer. I think we need to take this a lot more seriously. Yeah. But I do want to touch on the other bill you mentioned, which was expanding early voting. And I think if we're talking about the same issue here, what that bill did was expanded early voting for these elections that are taking place in April and May. Now, I tell you what, I actually voted for that bill because I think that in terms of an election, whether that is the number of days involved, eligibility to participate, locations in which to cast a ballot, should not change based on the date of the election. Whether an election takes place in April, May, June, or November, the rules should be the same. However, I think the bigger question is, should the state of New Jersey have elections in April and May to begin with? Because what do we see happen in these elections in April and May? A couple of things. One, turnout could not get any lower. And number two, the cost is borne entirely by the municipality or the school district that is holding that election in April or May. Whereas if it were taking place in November, the cost would be covered by the state. There's a very specific example of this. I'll be quick, which is the Newark School District had a school board election in April of this year. Turnout was 3.2%. Everyone on the school board got reelected. Turnout was 3.2%, and the cost of that election was borne against the Newark School District's budget. Now, you know, and your listeners probably know, that $1.3 billion of the Newark School District's $1.6 billion budget comes from New Jersey state taxpayers to begin with. But setting that aside for a moment, any dollar in that school budget should go to educating kids and helping kids achieve academically. It should not go to a frivolous election. Yes, because it's taking place in April when turnout's 3%. I think Newark's turnout in the November election last year was around 30%, and the state was covering the cost. So I think that's the bigger issue.
Yeah. People get election weary after a while. So
maybe we're going to take a quick break. Ready for that?
America's Pulse Network. The mainstream media is bought and paid for. The truth is twisted to fit their agenda. But America is waking up because podcasts are the future for trusted media. Welcome to the America's Pulse Network. It is a network built by patriots that upholds the Constitution. The America's Pulse Network stands for God, truth, and the America First movement. There is no corporate propaganda, no government spin, just real news, real talk, and real voices fighting for faith, freedom, and the future of this great nation with common sense. Here are some of America's Pulse Network podcasts. Alexandra Levine Live, hosted by Alexandra Levine. Jersey Shore Podcast, hosted by Damon Galdo. The Conservative Corner, hosted by Seth Eisenberg. APN's The Pulse, hosted by Alexandra, Damon, Elena, and Seth. So tune into America's Pulse Network on the following social media platforms: X/Twitter, Rumble, Truth Social, Parler, Facebook, and YouTube. Join the revolution. Because the pulse of America beats for God and country. America's Pulse Network is for faith, family, freedom, and truth.
Well, we're back. We are still talking to Mike Inganamort, and we're going to jump to a new topic. We flipped a clip at the beginning of the show. I hope you were in. It was a little bit entertaining, I think. It referred to Medicaid, and we have 1 in 5 in New Jersey on Medicaid. By the way, 1 in 10 in New Jersey are illegal immigrants. Let that sit with you for a minute, but let's just stick with Medicaid for a moment. Tell us about that clip.
Well, I was pointing out something that I don't think the Democratic majority particularly cared for, which is that over the course of 4 months of budget hearings, including with the Commissioner of the Department of Human Services as well as the Department of Health, we learned two very important facts. Number one, the amount that the federal government will be sending to the state of New Jersey in this new fiscal year for Medicaid is actually increasing. Yes, you heard me right. The federal government is increasing the amount it is sending to New Jersey for Medicaid to the tune of $1.01 billion. What is happening at the same time? The state of New Jersey is cutting Medicaid and healthcare programming by approximately $266 million. So that's why I made the remark that the call is coming from inside the house. It reminded me of those horror movies where, we're led to believe that the boogeyman is somewhere outside or somewhere far away. In fact, the boogeyman's right here in our own house. It's the state of New Jersey that is not only cutting Medicaid and associated healthcare programming by $266 million, but doing a really poor job when you compare New Jersey to other states in re-enrolling eligible participants. So the state of New Jersey's got a lot of work to do here.
Yeah, I mean, it's particularly irritating since the Democrats went on, forever, on months, talking about how mean Donald Trump was, to the state of New Jersey, and we're going to go into oblivion because of the cuts that Trump is imposing, on the state of New Jersey. And it was really just the opposite. And of course, they never followed up with that. And, thank goodness you pointed it out. And I think Assemblyman Rumpf also commented on it during one of the sessions. And it was really New Jersey that was the one doing the cutting. What is the total on Medicaid? Do you know offhand how big that is? It the feds gave 1.6 billion. Do you know how? Is it around 10 billion? Is that the whole pot? Is that the
whole pot? I think you're in the right ballpark, Jack. My takeaway and the point I'm making is that it's increasing by $1 billion from the federal government, while it's decreasing within the state of New Jersey's budget.
Yeah.
May I ask, was that clip before or after the new budget, where they're cutting $288 million in Medicaid? Is that now the new budget, and in the old budget they cut $266? Or is this?
That particular clip came from the final budget committee hearing, which was famously on a Sunday night. That was probably around 11 p.m., as a matter of fact, on a Sunday night. And that was the last go of the budget. So yes, the number was $266 million from these various healthcare programs. If you got to 288, you might be including some other programs that I am not. But the point is the same, that it's the state of New Jersey's budget that has reduced spending on these healthcare programs.
Well, good. I hoped it wasn't 266 and then another 288.
Yeah,
would have made it worse.
So
no, those are not. I can't imagine those are separate things. I'm not familiar with the 288 number. I am confident, however, in the 266.
Okay.
Why do they wait until the last minute to publish the budget? Aren't there any rules in the House that dictates amount of time that you guys can look at it and the public can look at it? Is it completely?
Well, there are a couple rules, and there are a couple rules, and I don't think they're strong enough. One of the rules is that there needs to be 2 days in between the budget committee passing the budget and the full assembly, in this case, hearing it. And so by passing that budget right around 11:45 p.m. on a Sunday night, it allowed the full assembly to take up the budget on a Tuesday. It followed that rule, but I repeat that enough, because I don't think a lot of New Jerseyans spent their Monday, not even many legislators spent their Monday going on through a $60.7 billion budget. There is legislation from my colleague, Assemblywoman Ora Dunn, and others that would require that there be a full month cooling off period between when a budget is introduced in its final version and ultimately voted on. And it would give not only legislators, but average New Jerseyans an opportunity to actually read the thing, react to it, and seek improvements.
Yeah.
And there's more to this wrinkle. We had Audrey Lane, whom we greatly respect, even before we had her on our show a couple weeks ago. But her group pointed out that in addition to all this, there's a 4.1 error rate in the management of the Medicaid funds, which is a pretty substantial error rate. And that's going to cost us, if it's not fixed by, I think, October 2029, another $155 million. I mean, it seems like we're digging ourselves into financial holes here. I don't know what you know about that, but the error rate is also, for our management, is not at a good place. How can they begin to blame well, we do know how they begin to blame the federal government. Blame Trump is always the answer, it seems, at the heyday of it all.
Audrey's got it right that New Jersey's error rate, which, by the way, is the case in numerous states around the country. And this is something that clearly the federal government is paying attention to. Finally, for the first time perhaps ever, that error rate is simply unacceptable. Those are wasted taxpayer dollars. We need to eliminate, greatly reduce the error rate, get it down to zero, so that the dollars that are going to people who actually need Medicaid, who rely on it for very specific services, are getting it. Any waste, fraud, and abuse in the system is hurting the people who need it more than anyone else, as well as the taxpayers, of course. But you raise an important point, and what I want to add to it, Constance, is that another thing that came out of these budget hearings, specifically with the Department of Human Services, is that for those individuals who are legitimately on Medicaid, who belong on Medicaid, who meet the requirements, who should be on it and should be re-enrolled, the state of New Jersey automatically re-enrolls fewer than 20% of those eligible Medicaid recipients. Also, I'm going to give you a couple more facts so you have these. New Jersey terminates Medicaid enrollees for procedural or paperwork reasons 10% higher than the national average. In fact, the state processes fewer than 27% of Medicaid applications within the 45-day deadline, which is actually required by federal law. So the Sherrill administration has been very critical of federal changes to Medicaid. And they keep warning New Jerseyans that there's going to be these cuts to Medicaid, and thousands of New Jerseyans are going to be kicked off of Medicaid on account of onerous paperwork requirements. In fact, once again, the call is coming from inside the House. It's the state of New Jersey that's failing these families, these individuals who belong on Medicaid, but are not being re-enrolled or properly enrolled in the first place.
I did not know that.
Yeah, did I hear Dawn in one of her clips say that could it be 1 million people on Medicaid that cannot confirm their citizenship? Was it some number like that? Did you happen to see that?
Within the state of New, I'll have to talk to Dawn about that. I don't know if the number is it 1 million?
I better not. I'm not exactly sure. I remember her giving some number. 1 million actually sounds a little high, but she gave some number that the people that are on Medicaid cannot prove their citizenship. And you do have to, again, you have to be a citizen to be on Medicaid. So
yeah, well, that is one. That is one of the requirements, as it is to vote in the United States of America, and look at the 6,600 that were put on the voting rolls. So clearly, that's something that's going to need, a hard look, and we need to get it right. But when it comes to these federal changes to Medicaid, and by the way, citizenship is not a change; it's just something that we need to be more vigilant and diligent about enforcing. The changes that are applying to Medicaid for able-bodied adults, not those who are senior citizens, is simply that they work or volunteer a certain number of hours per month. I think it's a particularly modest request to be on a federal health care program such as Medicaid. So the requirements are not particularly onerous. The breakdown seems to be in eligibility, whether it's citizenship or the state of New Jersey properly re-enrolling these people.
And they've gone out of their way that if you're disabled, if you're pregnant, if you have young children at home, they made tons of exceptions to that 20-hour week rule. It's quite reasonable. It's and anyone who's hardworking in the state would might justifiably resent someone who could get it so easily. But asking 20 hours from mature adults is not a big ask.
No.
Not to be on a federal health care program paid for by the taxpayers. Yeah. That's right.
Right.
Just with regard to citizenship, jumping back to the voter registration, I was listening to the news conference from Christine Hanlon earlier today. And one of the surprising elements, sort of sad, is that some of the immigrants that are going through the legal process, right, that are standing in line, paying the money, filling out the forms over a long period of time, some of them ended up on the voter rolls. And during that process, if it's discovered you are not a citizen and you are on the voter rolls, they are set up to be deported. They could be technically deported. Right. So there is ramifications here. Now, I'm sure that they'll work it all out, but these people now have this crisis that their name was on the voter roll illegally, and the DOJ, I guess, could deport them.
The very thing New Jersey has been trying to protest, they're contributing to.
Yeah.
The deportation.
Right. That would be a shame, Jack, for individuals. Yeah. And again, I'm just going based on the specific example you shared. If it's an individual who is following the law, checking all the boxes, filling out all the paperwork, doing everything he or she is supposed to do, and it was the state of New Jersey that failed that individual and erroneously enrolled them as a voter, and by the way, maybe even sent them a vote by mail ballot in some of these cases, it's possible. That would be a shame. So Constance, you're right. It's the state of New Jersey failing these people and doing precisely the thing they've been warning against.
Well, I hope they work that out.
Right.
So you and I talked a little bit on the phone about FIFA, and I'm sure New Jersey made billions of dollars on that. So any clue or any word whether we came out net ahead? Because I know we spent hundreds of millions of dollars in preparation in the surrounding towns and stadiums and this, that, and the other. We put a lot of money into it.
We sure did. I mean, let's break it down a little bit. New Jersey taxpayers were on the hook for $13 million of specific infrastructure improvements to MetLife Stadium, including the grass, which FIFA has now gone out and sold for profit, sharing in the proceeds with the host committee, sharing those dollars with the state of New York. I got a big problem with that. New Jersey taxpayers were on the hook to the tune of around $26 million to advertise the New York, New Jersey World Cup. I got a big problem with that. Yeah. New Jersey taxpayers were on the hook for $50 million to the World Cup host committee, and another $300 million in total public investment in the area around the Meadowlands. So are we going to make that up, Jack? I'm not so sure. We got to sharpen our pencils, do the math, and figure that out. I'm sure there was some amount of economic activity that was generated from the games. Is it on par with the total public investment? I'm not sure. And part of the reason why, listen, this is both the beauty and the curse of being located so closely to the greatest city in the world, New York City, is on the one hand, we have access to the capital and culture of the city, but on the other hand, it's hard to sometimes distinguish ourselves. And so I think we needed to go into this with reasonable expectations, particularly for these foreign tourists visiting the United States for the first time. Were they visiting the beautiful stretches of Western Morris County and Sussex County and Warren County? Or were they more likely seeing a Broadway play and shopping on Fifth Avenue and walking around Broadway? I think that's where they spent their tourism dollars. So I think New York is going to make out a lot better than New Jersey.
I think we know the answer to that for sure. Even just a very little thing that hits consumers. Apparently the $98 ticket fee, they didn't recoup it because people found another way to get home. They said, we're not paying $98 for New Jersey Transit when it's usually $13. They know better. So apparently the fares are up.
That's right.
Not like much. They're up 3% starting just in July 2026. But New Jersey Transit fares have gone up 20% just in 2 years. So when you look at it from that standpoint, we're steadily raising that transportation cost. And once again, the World Cup boondoggle, or however you want to call it, contributed to it.
Right. I think they need to raise the sales tax, which I think was shot down, but then they upped the hotel tax, I think. I don't know if that made it through.
They tried to. They tried to. The governor floated the idea of putting a 2.5% hotel occupancy fee statewide with a special carve out for the Jersey Shore. But in the example I just used, you tell me, were tourists staying in hotels in Morris, Sussex, and Warren counties? I don't think so. They were staying in New York. So the governor walked that back. I'm proud that Assembly Republicans stood unified against that tax increase. But it was a signal, Jack and Constance, that the governor expected there to be tourism dollars to capture through a higher tax in places like Morris, Sussex, Warren, Somerset, and Hunterdon counties. And clearly that didn't materialize.
Yeah. So let's, I do want to talk about the Superfund before we wrap things up. This is the tax on the oil companies, which is unbelievable. This is the Climate Superfund. What's your, can you tell us what that's about and what your take is on that?
This is probably the most radical bill I've seen come through the legislature in my 2.5 years there. And I've talked to some older folks who say the same thing, that they've never seen a bill so extreme as the Climate Superfund bill, which would penalize energy producers in the state of New Jersey to the tune of $50 billion for doing what? For creating a legal product that is used every day by the people of New Jersey up and down the state. It's actually it's not just a legal product, it's an essential product to our economy and our way of life. To penalize these companies to the tune of $50 billion for doing nothing more than producing a legal product on a free and open market, and at different points in history actually encouraged and incentivized to do so by the state and federal government, is frankly appalling. So I was distressed that this bill came out of committee in the Assembly and in the Senate. I spoke out strongly against it in the Assembly Environment Committee. And during that exchange, you might have seen a clip from one of my colleagues who said that New Jersey doesn't need those jobs. And he was referring specifically to the people who work at the refineries in Linden and in Paulsboro in North and South Jersey. We don't need those jobs, is what he said. I disagree. I totally disagree. We need any and all jobs in the state of New Jersey, and we need lower taxes, not the all-time biggest tax increase in history.
And the insidious part about this bill, it's retroactive, right? Back 20 years or some number of years, right? So
that's correct.
This was doing business 15 years ago, completely legal. And now all of a sudden they are retroactively making it illegal. Sounds like North Korea.
You know, there's that poem New Jersey recites, "How much do I love thee? Let me count the ways." Yeah. Well, they're not very loving to big business. They're doing everything they can to chase them out, whether it's retroactive later, whether it's the 11% corporate tax, whether it's the regulations. And you say, you put this in your speech to Assembly, too, that I was listening to. You can go down the string of big businesses have left just recently. They don't want big business. Yeah, let me count the ways. There aren't too many ways.
Absolutely.
Can I ask?
Please.
Yeah. Can I ask a few sentences about what your feelings are about data centers? Because it's a hot
data
topic.
Centers.
Monroe Township down here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, data centers need to be in the right places, and they're not the perfect fit, everywhere across the state of New Jersey. The last thing I would want to see is beautiful untouched farmland or open space turned into a data center or affordable housing for that matter, or any other type of development. So land that is preserved should stay preserved, period, end of story. Are there more industrial and commercial zones in our state that could accommodate a type of facility where data is processed, where water is on a closed loop, where energy usage is managed in a responsible way? I think that's inevitable. So I think we got to do this judiciously and carefully. That was more than a few sentences, Jack, but I think the bottom line is these are a necessity, and they just need to be managed in a responsible way.
This is a topic in our congressional races for midterm, that there needs to be a certain amount of regulation.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It makes me a little nervous that I hear people come out and just a total ban on data centers. I don't think that's the right approach. I think it's closer to, doing the correct due diligence that protects the environment, people, protect their electric bills so that they don't go up, as well as the watershed and that sort of thing. So,
well,
that's right. Protect the taxpayers, protect the environment, do this in a responsible way.
Yeah.
So we could talk more and we could talk all day on this and many other topics, but we're going to take leave, let you have your evening with your family, and really enjoyed meeting with you live like this. This is great.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Constance. Thank you, Jack. Great to chat with you. We covered a lot of ground, and I look forward to doing it again soon.
Thank you so much, Mike. We're going to take another quick break, and then we'll wrap up.
Thanks, Mike. We are ready. So we are back, and we have some guests coming up. Joe Laporto is on deck for the next. Now, some people might not know who Joe is, but this is all about the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. So he is the head of a Second Amendment group in New Jersey, and that'll be in 2 weeks. And then Rosemary.
Right. Rosemary Becky, I'm very thrilled that she's coming on our show.
Yeah.
She's got an organization called Jersey First. I know she works with interns. Anybody who's working with interns or people to educate them and help them get work, hone their critical thinking skills. I think it's terrific. So I think she'll be a great guest to have.
Yeah. So I want to get these dates here. Joe Laporto will be here August 11th at 7:30. Mm-hmm. And he's at the head of the New Jersey Firearms Syndicate, which is a large organization. And then Rosemary will be August 25th.
Right, at the end of the month.
So in the meantime, thank you very much for tuning in. And we hope you join us with Joe Laporto.
Thank you. Hope you found it informative.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Thanks for joining us on the New Jersey Statehouse Watch. Join Jack Brangan and Constance Ditzel every second and fourth Tuesday of the month at 7:30 p.m. Watch the show live at njstatehousewatch.com or listen anytime. Download the podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you next time on the New Jersey Statehouse Watch.